Hello, traders. Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, Sunday, 27 October 2024. In this edition of your weekend video newsletter, we'll discuss the indices which closed mixed with the S&P 500 slightly negative and the Qs closing up 0.5%. The S&P, on the other hand, closed about 22 points below its volatility trigger, while the Qs are still above the volatility trigger, with AMD, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Apple reporting earnings this week. We have mixed signals going into Monday trading. Currently, we have 3 bullish, 3 neutral, and 14 bearish to start the week. So we'll start with a bit of caution, looking forward to earnings on Tuesday from AMD and Google. The S&P 500 closed below its volatility trigger, slightly above support at 5,800, a key gamma level, with a neutral to bearish bias to start Monday trading, leaning towards the negative as MACD continues to move lower, while the Qs remain above their volatility trigger as big tech managed to hold some of its gains, giving the Qs more of a bullish bias despite the fact that we faded the highs and closed in the lower half of the daily range on Friday, with MACD turning up and volume increasing on the bullish note, with the New York FANG index components closing modestly higher, still trending 921.50, 200-day are all pointing up and to the right, as Google, Meta, Nvidia, and Tesla managed to close green. The other 6 closed a little bit lower, giving us that shooting star back to the 90 MA on the New York FANG index. At the same time, the small caps closed lower on the week, along with the New York Stock Exchange, as they put in more new lows than new highs, producing red elder sticks on the index, as well as advanced decline drifting a bit lower. So breadth did deteriorate last week across all of the indices, big cap, mid cap, small cap, with the exception of the NASDAQ, which managed to close higher. Overall, the indices are telling us to be cautious to start. However, we do have big tech earnings that could be an opportunity to trade some short-term momentum ideas and to sell some premiums like iron condors or credit spreads this week. One of the caveats we'll have to deal with this week is the 10-year yield moving higher back above the 200-day moving average, along with junk bonds and a bearish signal as it drops below the 50-day last week. Looking for it to move towards the 200-day if we don't see some strength early on these tech earnings. For now, I would say this is risk off. I'd be reducing my exposure and trading fewer positions up into and after the election, just over a week from this Tuesday. The US dollar is also showing strength, moving back above the 200-day moving average on Monday, still trending. That's slightly bearish for equities, with a simultaneous bullish move in gold and silver, indicating there could be some safety concerns in the precious metals and the US dollar as they both rise into the election, coupled with the strength in the 10-year yield. And now we have commodities starting to catch a bid back above its 200-day moving average after drifting lower from its peak a few weeks ago. We'd view this as a negative if this continues to trend into year end, along with a bounce in crude oil products, still near the 50-day moving average, rising. Could start to see a trend. So we want to keep an eye on Brent crude and gasoline prices this week as they have an effect on consumers, with an overall neutral to slightly bearish signal from the dollar, the 10-year, and commodities going into Monday trading. So with that in mind, we'll remain a bit cautious. Looking forward to AMD, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Apple earnings this week. Sectors are giving us caution signals as well, like biotechs pulling back below the 20 and the 50-day moving averages. Defensive sectors also pulling back, so that's not helping. While consumer discretionary did see some strength along with semiconductors and tech, overall the markets feel a bit cautious. We're more than likely just seeing some risk off with the XLY XLP ratio still bullish, indicating institutions haven't positioned sharply bearish at this point going into the election next week. Small cap sectors, all 9, are moving a bit lower, showing weakness going into Friday's close. Yet again, another reason to be more cautious to start off on Monday trading. Stocks that we're looking at this week on the IBD 50 and scans that may follow through this week. IONQ is one that was mentioned in the trading room earlier in the week. Also note DJT, Trump Media going into the election, is above its 200-day moving average and looking very strong. Moving above these volume by price bands over here on the left histogram. RSI showing muscle. Volume shows a lot of interest. And DJT, more than likely going to be pretty volatile into next week, the election, Super Tuesday. IONQ, mentioned earlier in the week, a couple of you have been trading this since it moved above the 200-day moving average back in the first week of October. Volume shows institutions have been buying. I'll be looking for a flag now or a continuation of this pattern. It just looks like they keep falling all over themselves buying IONQ. Palantir also showing strength, following through 921.50, 200-day, all pointing up and to the right. I'd like to see more volume. MACD's turned up, added to the S&P 500. RSI showing strength. Looking for Palantir to continue trending like it did here, where it broke out and then continued along its bullish path. Look for more of that going into this week. Duolingo on the IBD 50. RSI is rising, MACD and stochastics turning, volume starting to pick up. The company recently reporting a beat, reports again on November 6th. All 4 metrics are green, 537% earnings growth, 40.6 revenue growth, beat by 18 cents last time around, consensus 33 cents, reported earnings of 51 cents. Duolingo, as the name implies, offering languages for learning and study. Taiwan Semiconductor, looking for a follow-through after the bounce on Friday. Volume, MACD, stochastics, everything turning more bullish this week. If we get a follow-through in Taiwan Semi, perhaps it'll spill over into AMD with earnings on Tuesday and NVIDIA in a couple of weeks. Despite the weakness in the S&P 500 last week, we got QFIN pushing higher, looking like it's going to take out the highs, pointed to a bullish follow-through to start the week. The company reporting again, November 14th, beat the last time around. 3 metrics green, earnings growth, revenue growth, earnings surprise. They missed the high estimate, but beat the earnings for most. They were looking for 99 cents, came in with $1.22 last time around. So look for QFIN to continue. A leading credit tech platform in China with a bullish bid going into Friday's close. Just a few names that look really good for the week. Carvana continues this bullish trend despite the weakness in the S&P. And small caps, IWM. This stock continues to move higher. Stochastics embedded, MACD turning back up. Volume could be a little better like it was back in the second, third week of September. Other than that, RSI showing muscle. The strength of the trend is persistent. With the company reporting this week on Wednesday after the close with Microsoft and Meta. So maybe a scalp or short-term swing looking towards earnings on Wednesday. Zeekr Intelligent Technology, they're in the electric vehicle battery industry group. Volume looks good. It does report earnings in a couple of weeks. MACD and stochastics turning up. Volume increased on Friday, popping, reporting again on November 14th. So we'll be watching this one for a little follow-through on Monday. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, Sunday, the 27th of October, 2024. I'll send out a watch list tonight around 12 midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast, with stocks that have the best probability of following through this week. Remember, we will be a bit more cautious because we do have 14 bearish indicators, 3 neutral and 3 bullish to start the week. So that's telling us to keep an eye on the markets to start, see how these earnings go this week on AMD, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Apple, among others. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care, and we'll see you in the morning. Take care.